Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Now, the former finance minister, said Tekbe insists that the John Mahama-led government was justified in sending Ghana to the IMF. His comments come days after the fund approved the exit of Ghana from its Extended Credit Facility program, which provides financial assistance for countries with protracted balance of payment problems. The debate as to whether or not the John Mahama administration was justified in going to the IMF for economic assistance in 2015 seems to be gaining currency. But in an interview with Joy Business, Mr. Tekwe said going to the IMF at that time was a pragmatic decision to save the economy from crashing.
You have to be pragmatic if you are managing an economy. And contrary to what people say, one of the outcomes of Senchi is to go to IMF because the fiscal situation, particularly after we had calculated the liability associated with the single SPAR, and after we had seen the situation. Remember, back then we had a bit of drought and other things.
Yes.
When we had seen all of this, the pragmatic thing to do was to go to the IMF.
You had no choice.
Well, I said the pragmatic thing to do. You see, when you talk, yes, it was one of choices. You go or you don't go. Remember, I said that when we took over in 2013 and we did a homegrown with the assistance of African Development Bank, we thought we could manage. But then when you calculate the subsidy liabilities, when you calculate, in particular, the impact of lack of gas supply, and remember back then, crude oil was selling at over $100. We benefited from it and created a sinking fund and other things, which was the positive side. But remember, we're not getting cheap gas from Nigeria, and we had to buy crude for VRE, using our hard currency to keep the power running. Right. So the situation just suggested that you needed an institution to support the economy.
Now, one of the major issues we talked about during the 4th edition of the Where to Invest in Africa Report breakfast meeting, which takes place on Tuesday, is the performance of the city. Celeste Fauconnier, the lead economist at the First Rand Bank of RMB Group, will help investors understand the city's performance so far with predictions of how it will close by the end of the year. Even though the local currency in the last 2 weeks has performed creditably against the dollar, the head of commercial, corporate and investment banking at the First National Bank, Victor Asante, has asked government to put its expenditure in check.
It's expected that once the Eurobond was out of the way, the city will probably make some gains. Because notice that what happens is that once there's a shortage of supply, when demand and supply, there's a gap, what happens is that people try to bring ahead even their needs, and therefore more sentiments and so on drives it very quickly. But once there's supply, people then take their time and they don't rush it, and then we have. So I think we've gone through that cycle with the success of the Eurobond and the clear knowledge that it now is resolved. Thankfully, I think IMF too has also released its
182 or 85 million.
Yes, also comes in. We also know that the government went in for a bridge from to international banks. So the supply side has been resolved, and therefore what we will see is that the return to calm, and people will only access dollars as they want. So I think we've gone through the most difficult parts. It's always the first quarter. We always have this happening in the first quarter. So I believe, I'm not sure whether we recover completely to the way back to where we started the year at. What happens is that when you go up like that, you notice that even when you recover, there's a little bit of it that you don't recover. But I think at the end of the year, we'll probably be hovering around the usual annual depreciation rate that we probably had expected. So what I'm seeing is that I won't be surprised if what we end up in April ending with will be the same about or slightly higher when we get to December. So I think we may not recover fully, but by the time the year ends, we would have evened out.
What do you say to someone who say that, look, we're dealing with the symptoms, but we need to deal with the real issue? Because, some have even raised issues of government spending and all that with regards to the city.
Yeah, but that's true. It's because If it is a simple supply and demand situation, if your demand is higher than your supply, then you always have such situations occurring. And there are some particular times of the year where it becomes astute, particularly in the beginning of the year where people are paying Christmas bills, maybe dividends are being paid, and at the same time that investors were also going out and supply side was not working and so on. So it's going to happen all the time until we come to a situation where we have enough exports or enough FX being generated such that there's a match.
While the Where to Invest in Africa report, which also assesses investment opportunities in Africa, will give some warnings on future economic outlook across the continent, the breakfast meeting is taking place on Tuesday, the 26th of March at the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel at 9 a.m. To other news now. Last year, cocoa farmers complained of major losses, which resulted in Ghana failing to meet its annual cocoa target of 1 million tons. The reality of climate change has been identified as one of the factors having a major impact on farming, with many farmers losing their farms and investments. To tackle this, cocoa farmers have been advised to grow shade trees on their farms to protect crops. Here's Senior Programs Officer at Solidaridad West Africa, Edward Yautre.
Ghana is known for its glories in cocoa production, and as we being part of the global community, definitely the implications of climate change and the impacts on the productions of cocoa, we cannot take ourselves out. This is why farmers are complaining, or farmers are getting the results of climate change impact on their production. What we need to do and what is being done proving is for farmers to adapt a climate smart production. And this system is working that you need to understand the time frames of operations. You need to do as much as possible to conserve water in the area of your cocoa cultivation. And you need to make sure that the investment you are putting in is in a stepwise manner. You don't just do things anyhow. Because nowadays cocoa cultivation or cocoa farming is a business, and it's as science as you are learning biology. So you need to understand the dynamics. Farmers will have to appreciate that the climate is changing and the impact is clear for everybody to see.
And that's it for business.